Here's one for the record books. 2016 is expected to be the hottest year ever, according to the World Meteorological Organization. In fact, 16 of the 17 hottest years on planet Earth have occurred this century. Another milestone was reached in September, usually a time of year when the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere goes below 400 parts per million. This year, it didn't. That number is significant because it's considered by climatologists as the point of no return in terms of reversing or mitigating the impact of man-made global warming. And then there's the Arctic. Last month, the area usually covered by ice was about 18% below the average, recorded between 1981 and 2000. That's the lowest since NOAA started tracking this back in 1979. Now, a new administration is planning to take the reins next month, and Donald Trump has had a lot to say about his thoughts on global warming and environmental policy in general.
Well, climate change is not high on my list. I think that the climate changes, and it goes like this, it's patterns.
Well, the world is in turmoil and falling apart in so many different ways, especially with ISIS. Our president is worried about global warming. What a ridiculous situation.
I am a huge believer in clean water and clean air, crystal clean water and air. I'm a very big believer in that, and we have a lot to do with that, keeping our water clean, keeping our air clean.
Energy is under siege by the Obama administration, under absolute siege. The EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is killing these energy companies.
Cabinet nominees like Scott Pruitt for the EPA have environmentalists worried about how clean air and water can be achieved with someone leading the agency who's long been an opponent of its objectives. And Trump has also promised to reverse a number of pro-environment executive orders that President Obama has signed. Then there are questions about what Trump will do with the Paris Agreement, a multinational effort to reduce the impact of global warming. Joining me to talk more about what they expect when the new administration takes office are George Bachrach, President of the Environmental League of Massachusetts, Steve Leahy, Vice President of the Northeast Gas Association, and Cindy Lupi, Regional Director of Clean Water Action. Thank you all for being here. Well, Cindy, let me start with you. You want clean water. Donald Trump wants crystal clean water, so you're in good shape, right?
Oh, we're thrilled. No, actually, we're pretty concerned about the rollbacks that he's already talking about on the waterfront.
Which ones in particular?
Particularly the Waters of the U.S. rule that was an advance that moved forward in the previous administration that enabled the smaller water bodies that feed into our drinking water supplies and surface waters to have the same protections that larger water bodies do under the Clean Water Act. There was a rollback during the George W. Bush administration due to legal judicial interpretations. And under President Obama, we were able to regain the full power of the Clean Water Act for these smaller water bodies.
And Trump has said he wants to reverse that once
It's
again?
on the short list. It's on the short list for policies that he wants to roll back. So that's a direct disconnect with his statements around wanting to protect crystal clean water.
I want to get the other two in here, but how do you reconcile that disconnect? On the one hand, he says he's passionate about crystal clean water. On the other hand, he wants to roll that back. What do you make of that?
It literally is a definition of words that don't make sense.
All right.
It's completely inconsistent at the most basic point.
George Bachrach, what do you see when you look ahead to the next 4 years, environmentally speaking?
Well, I think the battle shifts from Washington to the cities and states. I mean, Washington is now filled with climate deniers. He could not have done a better job of filling it with people that are in the wrong century. It's a debate now between whether the world is round or flat, and that's not a debate that I intend to get into. The question is whether cities and states can lead the nation. And Massachusetts, for example, is in a very good position to do that. We're going to build the first offshore wind farm in America. It shouldn't be the last. We ought to be able to build a white picket fence up and down the East Coast of wind turbines. We lead the nation in energy efficiency. We can't stop there. We ought to have a MPG sticker on houses, not just cars. So we can lead even when Washington is not.
How meaningful would that leadership be here in Massachusetts? I know for a state like California, I mean, they're as big as some smaller countries. I shouldn't even say smaller countries. They have a gargantuan economy. So I know when they take action, it can have a real meaningful effect. Can it do the same thing if a state like Massachusetts does something new and innovative?
Well, I think we have to find concrete, tangible projects like an offshore wind farm or like energy conservation, such as an MPG sticker on houses, not just cars. If we do that, other states will follow. The irony here is the Republican administration in Washington is going to have to come out against states' rights. That's what the Republican Party has always stood for, states' rights against big government in Washington. They're going to have to change their tune now, or else they're going to have to let us do our thing.
Steve Leahy, are the people that you represent more or less on the same page with the president-elect when it comes to environmental regulation, or is he even more of a deregulator than they would like to see in the highest office?
We don't represent the producers, actually, even from Pennsylvania or from Texas. We represent the distribution companies in the pipeline. So there's a lot of people are excited about it, a change in the Trump administration towards more energy production. But listening to the tape you played with Trump saying, this energy has been in straitjacket and he's going to unleash it, at least on the natural gas side, production has been hitting all-time highs. Actually, last year in 2015, U.S. production hit an all-time level in the U.S. In a state like Pennsylvania, which really didn't produce natural gas significantly about 10 years ago, in the last 8 years, is now the #2 producer of gas after Texas. So the market's incentives have been there for oil and gas. The price has been a little lower in recent years, so some drilling has backed off. But it's been pretty robust. He wants to make it more robust, and he wants to reopen the door for coal. And we'll see how that develops. That'll be a little challenging because it's really the demise of coal to a great extent is a market situation with natural gas rising up. It's
well, my
lower
assumption
emissions.
would be that if coal makes some sort of a comeback, then that could maybe not be a desirable outcome, right, for the people that you represent?
Right. So if what's displaced coal is natural gas. And so if coal is to make a comeback, it's in power generation. That's where gas is displaced.
Coal is not making a comeback. We all know that. Coal is whale oil. I mean, coal got driven out by lower-priced oil. Oil's getting driven out by lower-priced natural gas. It's a marketplace decision that he can talk all he wants, but what he needs to do is provide transitional aid to coal miners so they can be retrained for other jobs.
This is a local issue for us in Massachusetts because the last operating coal plant in Brayton Point in the southeastern part of the state is scheduled to cease operation in 2017. So this is a really timely discussion that we're having, and it was a decision that the current owners of the plant have made and reinforced. So I would agree with both Stephen and with George that this is moving forward. And the other thing that I think really locks us in to a strong leadership path here in Massachusetts is the fact that we have arguably the greatest state mandate to reduce carbon pollution in the nation. In 2008, the state passed the Global Warming Solutions Act, and that mandates us to hit a 25% reduction in carbon pollution by 2020 and deeper by 2050.
Do you see the Baker administration as continuing to be as aggressive on environmental fronts as you would like them to be? You're nodding your head enthusiastically.
Well, I would say as we would like them to be is an interesting turn of phrase.
I shouldn't have thrown those. It's always the words at the end that you tap.
I think what the Baker administration now understands is that it's an economic engine for the state. I mean, if we do offshore wind in Europe has created 65,000 jobs. It could create 65,000 jobs here. We already have over 100,000 jobs in the clean energy sector. It is the future of our economy.
And I'd add, and the phrase he's put out there is combo platter.
This is Governor Baker.
Governor Baker, in terms of not locking in, not favoring one fuel over another, but opening up
many
clean
different
energy,
sources of energy,
but
right.
also natural gas and other fuels. Efficiency, we're #1 in efficiency in Massachusetts.
Yeah,
so,
and
he's fully behind that.
He and the state's court system has reaffirmed recently in the past year that climate mandate for the state. He put out an executive order that included a commitment to tackle transportation emissions, really look at those issues, and to move forward with carbon pollution reduction plans for 2030, 2040, 2050. The question is, and ultimately time will tell whether that's a document that gets a nice airing in the media or whether it's actually implemented. And I think we're here to keep the focus on making sure it's implemented.
On that front, let me ask you, we, I think, used the phrase point of no return in the setup to this discussion. It had been my understanding as a layperson that the Paris Agreement was sort of the last best hope of reversing the impact of human-generated climate change. And Trump has made it abundantly clear that he doesn't want any part of that. So at a certain point, even if we're doing things in Massachusetts that are innovative or that are emulated by other states, at a certain point, doesn't it simply become too late to turn back the tide? And Aren't we at that point already?
Well, first of all, 120 nations or thereabouts signed the Paris Accord, so it's not like the rest of the world is going to keep moving on this. But Trump is going to find out that even in red states, he can't turn things back. Rick Perry from Texas, for example, is a 50% renewable energy state. Chuck Grassley from Iowa has got a 50% renewable state. The farmers of this country are building wind turbines on their farmland to save. You know, this president is going to find out that even in his own party, he's got people that want credits and other things for renewable energy.
Steve,
And even the International Energy Agency, IEA, put out their latest forecast last month, and it's renewables and natural gas. Their forecast are going to make up 80% of the future energy consumption globally. And so I almost think, again, it's a market. No matter what if there's a change in direction, which there will be in Washington, the market is moving that way to renewables, to natural gas. I think
we
that will
got to
continue.
wrap it up there. Unfortunately, this is a huge conversation. Stick around. I have like 5 questions I want to ask you off camera.